Next on BBC One, the latest news, followed by Panorama.
Journey to some amazing places with a season of inspirational summer music. The BBC Proms, every night this week on Radio 3 and BBC 4.
The news now on BBC One with Darren Jordan. It's 10 o'clock.
Stepping up the pressure on Tony Blair, the row continues over Iraqi intelligence. The Tory leader says, with hindsight, he wouldn't have voted to back the war. Council tax shake-up, the government considers major changes to the banding system. High drama at the Open as the American Todd Hamilton wins at Royal Troon. And tonight on Panorama, the carers looking after loved ones who are seriously ill, and how we make it so hard for some of them to get the help they need. Good evening. The Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats have been stepping up the pressure on Tony Blair over intelligence on Iraq. In an interview with a Sunday newspaper, the Tory leader Michael Howard said he would not have backed the government in a crucial Commons vote on military action if he'd known that some intelligence was flawed. But he does make clear that he still supports the war. Labour has accused him of opportunism.
Marching bands, relieved but proud families, and of course medals. All the signs of a fighting force home from war. Here, members of the Royal Monmouthshire Royal Engineers honoured for their courage during the war in Iraq, a war the politicians are still fighting over. The government wants Lord Butler's report to be the last word on the way intelligence was handled before the war, but the opposition parties say it raises more questions and will press home their attack in a Commons debate this week. The Conservative leader Michael Howard still backs the war, but today he said he would not have supported the government in a key vote in Iraq if he'd known there were no weapons of mass destruction. The motion for the vote claimed that Iraq's weapons of mass destruction and long-range missiles pose a threat to international peace and security. And it continued, the UK should use all means necessary to ensure the disarmament of Iraq's weapons of mass destruction. But the government says Mr. Howard's trying to have it both ways.
What he's doing is using lawyerly weasel words in order to try to deny some kind of responsibility. This is an exercise in cynical political opportunism.
Tony Blair was arguing before the House of Commons, both in the motion and himself in his speech, that there was certainty about these weapons of mass destruction. He was not giving us the whole truth, and that is why we've said, had we known the whole truth, we would have found the wording of that motion unacceptable.
Parliament breaks up for the summer holidays this week, and ministers hope that'll help draw a line under Iraq. But the Tories and Lib Dems are determined to keep the pressure on and the questions coming.
Why doesn't someone come to the dispatch box and say, look, we got it wrong, we're sorry we got it wrong, and we'll make sure this doesn't happen again so far as is humanly possible.
The government this week is going to mount a concerted attempt to move off Iraq and onto the domestic agenda. There are going to be policy announcements on law and order, transport, a shake-up in the armed forces, and even possibly a reshuffle. James Landale, BBC News, Westminster.
The Iraqi government says it gave the go-ahead for an American airstrike on a house in the city of Fallujah, which killed 11 people. Local residents spent the day searching for survivors. America says it targeted buildings which were used to harbour militants, although medical staff say women and children were among the dead. Iraq's new Prime Minister, Ayad Alawi, says the security situation is getting better. But as well as violence between insurgents and coalition troops, there's been a wave of recent attacks on shops selling alcohol, CDs and DVDs. Here's Caroline Hawley.
It's another front line in the fight for this country's future. Waleed and Manhal were partners in what was once a successful alcohol business. They've now lost everything here. And theirs is just one of several shops attacked in the past few days in this area of Baghdad alone.
I'm thinking of emigrating now, of leaving Iraq if I can. I have a family of 5, and this was my livelihood.
No matter that most of Iraq's alcohol shops are owned by Christians. A moral war is being waged by Muslim extremists here. The attacks seem to have the blessing of many clerics.
Muslims who drink should first be beaten, then threatened, then killed. Sellers of alcohol should be warned, then have their shops destroyed.
Iraq used to be one of the most secular countries in the Middle East. It's said to have had the region's first brewery. But ever since Saddam Hussein was toppled, there's been a battle for the cultural soul of this society. It seems now to be heating up. It's put the fear into Saad Yusuf, who sells imported Western music in a smart part of Baghdad.
If there's nobody will stop them, maybe they'll go further by attacking these shops, the audio music shop.
With more threats and attacks, there are many Iraqis worried about where this country's heading. Caroline Hawley, BBC News, Baghdad.
The government is due to set out ideas for an overhaul of the council tax. They could see those living in the most expensive homes paying thousands of pounds more. Poorer homeowners would pay less.
Hikes in council tax have caused great concern, especially amongst pensioners. Some have seen rises of more than 100% in 8 years, and many insist they simply can't afford it.
The council tax has been going up twice as fast as the basic state pension. It's really not fair. It puts people under a lot of pressure, and it does need to be radically reformed, taking into account people's ability to pay.
The leaked draft report on reforming local taxation is suggesting making those in more expensive homes pay thousands more. This would mean reduced bills for people in less valuable properties. And these London homes could see some of the sharpest increases in council tax rates. They're worth